Thank you, Kerem, for having me here, this exciting event. I'm a high-tech entrepreneur and investor, have been in the high-tech industry for about 30 years. After graduating from the Technion as an electronics engineer, I turned into the entrepreneurial path. I started a number of companies. I was a CEO of venture-backed companies in the area of cyber and identity management, and then turned into the investment side of the ecosystem. Partnered, and I was a partner with a US-based venture capital firm for about 15 years, investing in all sides and aspects of early stage deep technology companies, both in the US and in Israel. About 2.5 years ago, I took a turn in my career. I became a politician. I ended up as the Minister of Science and Technology for the Israeli government. And I left the government and politics about 9 months ago to join Disruptive AI, which is an early stage deep tech investment venture capital firm focused on AI technologies here in Israel. And this is where I partnered with Yorai, who is next to us here on this screen.
Okay, thank you. And now, Yorai, let's have the same information about you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's great to be here with two great friends, and I really appreciate the opportunity to build this bridge with TRAI and Israel from the other side, for both sides AI enthusiasts. Few words about myself. Till about 2 years ago, I've been to the IDF, doing mainly R&D in the area of AI and cyber. And actually, if you know the place, and we probably will say some words about it later, the place of the Israeli IDF alumni that go to the private sector as soon as they finish with their service, it's a dramatic part, because those R&D units are very innovative and very progressive and doing a lot of technology. So this is where I come from, where the area is, kind of a brew for the talents and for the startups, and now happy to be in Disruptive AI, which we've established and built as the first AI focused venture capital in Israel, looking for early stage investments and doing deep tech. So it's great to be here, and looking forward to say a few words about Israel and our experience.
Yeah, and I'd like to go on with that. Actually, when I saw the wording disruptive AI and the related things like machine learning and everything else, I believe that it's like training the children, educating them and things like that. But as you try to teach them something, they also watch you, and they look at your actions and everything out, what you're talking with your friends. And at the end, they start to disrupt the family. They become just the opposite. So from this point of view, can you tell us about disruptive AI, the early stages, what you look at, the valuations, and those small children that will grow up and become heroes?
Well, the idea here is to do the connection between disruptive and in the industry of venture creation and innovation. Disruptive is a good word, though it sounds like something to disrupt things. But we want to disrupt the way things are done by today with technologies in order to make progress in every aspect of our life. So this is the disruptive side, and the AI side came as a thought that even in Israel, a very innovative country, the AI community is not yet working as a community, and we wanted to build a home for this community, people that could engage. And I'm talking about mainly the private sector, but also from the academies, which is very involved with the private sector, and as I mentioned, the ITF alumni. So we actually built a kind of a home for those initiatives, and we deploy investments into those startups under the idea that we can see startups from the very beginning. Today, for example, we saw two guys coming out of my unit, my former unit, and they have an idea. They did nothing yet, and we try to build together the idea and to focus the company. And in later stages, we invest in what we call round A or pre-A, meaning that we are active in the early stage, trying to figure out where we can be most helpful to create the AI most effectively. And our sweet spot is around the seed plus, around $1 million to $5 million investment in early stage. We take sometimes, we invest, based on only slides of a PowerPoint. And in other cases, we invest in round A, where we can see some traction with ARR of few millions already. So this is the idea. It's very great. We get to see 500 to 600 companies a year that involve AI in their doing, and it's very tough, to take the decision who is going to be with us and who not.
So, talking about decisions, actually, our government recently announced a 5-year plan about AI in Turkey. So, I'd like to ask Izhar about the government policy and early stage investments and how these two things complete each other.
Yes, it is an interesting topic, and you are right to point out, Kerem, that governments are involved in this exciting area of technology, because the ramifications go way beyond just technology and research. So actually, probably the two first major global powers that embarked on an AI national program were the Chinese government on the one end and the US government on the other end. And that happened already about 10 years ago. And both China and the United States invested billions and billions of dollars in building an infrastructure and promoting the developing of AI for the reasons governments perceive as the right reasons for governments to intervene in an interesting area of technology. If you think about this, governments will not intervene in any area of technology in all areas. Governments have to pick up carefully where is that they want to involve taxpayers' money, where is that they want to emphasize the importance of the development of new technologies, and AI, artificial intelligence, is definitely one of those areas where the United States and China, and following through over the last decade, dozens of other nations have decided to emphasize, to build up, and to plan for the development of a national policy and infrastructure and regulation around AI. Happy to hear that the Turkish government has embarked on an AI policy, and so did the Israeli government. Frankly, it took us here in Israel a number of years to formalize what is that the government wants to get involved with. The government actually commissioned a committee that reviewed carefully the various aspects of AI and then presented recommendations which were endorsed just last year and are now in the process of unfolding and beginning to be implemented. Some of the areas a government has to pay attention to are what are the opportunities that the AI presents on the national level? For example, the contribution to the economy. If you deploy AI to help the workforce, to support the workforce, to improve efficiencies, there is a significant contribution to the economy. On the other end, governments have to pay attention to the issue of ethics, privacy, compliance with all kinds of other government policies, which are important to keep the democracy going, keep the economy going, and so on. So it's not an easy decision as to just to let everything happen and to fund everything. The committee that was commissioned by the Israeli government actually inspected various areas of AI and then recommended that the government get involved specifically in 3 areas as a starting point. So first of all, the government here decided to put together an infrastructure for AI research in the academies, in the universities, in various early stage development facilities supported by the government, so that people can come in, experiment, make use of government funding in order to try their own expensive projects, some of which are supported by the government. And then on top of this, the committee recommended and the government endorsed a focus on 3 areas. One of them is precise agriculture. So precise agriculture is everything that you could do with data, with the so many pieces of data that accumulate from telescopes and satellites out of space, and from drones and planes and other sensors that are installed on the ground, implementing all of these into various AI applications using those endless pieces of data in order to make sense, in order to improve the yield, to improve the quality, to support the invention of new types of say, protein and other plants. And there are all kinds of examples where AI can help improve the agriculture, which is an important aspect of modern life. As surprising as it is, agriculture has been here forever. But when all of us look at the next 50 years, food is going to become a significant issue when nations will strive to improve the quality of the agriculture and food that they give to their constituents. And obviously, also there is the concern about the supply and so on. So this is an area that the government here felt it would be important to emphasize the government support. Another area is smart cities. As we develop as a modern country, and I'm sure Turkey also does, there's so many issues that involve with the growing of cities into large metropolitans, traffic, pollution, quality of life, everything that deals with living in a modern city. And obviously, again, the availability of so many points of data from sensors, from traffic lights, from cameras, from everything that is out there that can feed into AI systems. So the government decided to endorse also this area in order to put investment into it. And then another interesting one is AHR, the education and training of people into new types of jobs, some of which have not been invented yet, some of which are new types of jobs and people who were educated into other areas. So making the correlation, finding the appropriate correlation of people's skills and experience into new types of jobs and identifying what is available out there is a major issue for the government here, where we are trying to enhance the workforce, to enhance the productivity of the workforce as well. So those are 3 examples of government policies that support the development and the advancement of AI into the commercial, civilian, economic life of citizens here in Israel, where the government feels that it can influence positively and support the development of AI.
And one minor question to that. How did the Israeli government avoid being a competitor to those startups? Because the government always has huge resources and they can just build anything.
This is an excellent point, Kerem, and thank you for pointing at it. This is a significant policy that was set by the Israeli government probably more than 35 years ago. And the policy is the government will support and fund innovation by all kinds of general policies, but the government will not intervene and will not compete. The government will fund all kinds of early stage projects as they are presented by entrepreneurs. And the categories are actually selected by entrepreneurs, and the startups are put together by private investors and entrepreneurs and the private sectors by and large. The government has to put in place policies, for example, to ease on international taxation so that it is easier for international investors to invest in exciting Israeli startups. The government puts together policies for international global tech vendors to come in to Israel. They give them all kinds of tax breaks and all kinds of other provisions that make it worthwhile for large enterprises. And today we have representations in Israel of about 500 of the top global tech vendors. You put a name, they probably have a facility in Israel because it is worthwhile for them to be here, because of the opportunities, because the ecosystem presents the best talents to them, and that's why they are here. But the government will not pick a startup or a project to fund it unless there is a project with significant national security implications. And this is a totally different area where the government emphasizes and invests in. But by and large, the private and commercial sectors are supported by policies and not directly competing with the government.
Okay, then I'd like to turn to Yorai for a significant question. The talent management or education and building this talent, it's very critical because you're building something new, but all your training and other resources are from the past. So how do you handle that issue, actually building of the human and IT resources?
Well, it's kind of you have two questions within.
Yes.
Question. So I'll start with what I call the data play, and then we'll move to the human factor. Israel decided about 20 years ago to save it was regulated every digital health issue to save it digitally, and now it's available for startups. So for example, every startup in the area of health can access 20 years of data to train his model and to build his category and make use of it. It's not open at the wild. You have to do some process to approach that, but it's there because hospitals and all vendors had to keep storing all digital data along the years. So this is like one example, but it shows that there is a deep understanding that data should be taken care of and should be available for this innovation and this creation. Of course, there is regulation about privacy and all matters that might be interfering, but the basic material for AI creation is the data. You're good as your data, So this is one aspect, but we actually suffer from a different kind of challenge because Israel is a small market. So startups that want to build themselves, to scale and to grow, have to do everything in English and to look at the US market or the European market and so forth. And then if the Israeli market wants to enjoy those creation, like, I'm helping the Ministry of Education to find AI for its use. And there is a problem because Hebrew is the language we use in Israel, like a side language. So it's very difficult to create the language model for Hebrew because there is no incentive for the private sector. So these are kind of gaps that the Israeli government will take a step forward and help the academics and the private sector to do something with that. So there will be enough data to train and enough infrastructure to train the models for Hebrew. So I think probably Turkey is struggling same challenge.
But I want to ask a question about that later.
Okay,
so now let's only focus on the human resource and the IT infrastructure.
So let's talk about the human resource. So it's kind of a thing that we look on what happened with the cyber, and we are the AI people want to do the same. And what happened with the cyber is that it started, as I mentioned, in the IDF as a technology needed to be used, and then those people from the IDF, together with the government and the private sector, built institute for institutional processes for educating from the very early stage, from high school, and opening courses and doing conversion courses to take people from one domain to the cyber. So we are like, after 10 years of success, in growing up cyber experts in all kinds of level, talents, but also, the even the lowest levels needed to create this industry. Now with AI, we are in early stages of that. We had a long journey to convince universities to open the doors to people that want to learn data science. Before that, it was only you could learn computer science or electrical engineering and so forth. There were no studies named data science or AI. And now this revolution is already taking place, and you can see people that coming out of the university with specialties and the right courses in those areas. And professors also move forward and they describe themselves as data scientists, no more engineers or something like that. So it's a kind of a revolution through the academics, and also creating all kinds of initiatives to take people from all kinds of domains and to teach them the theory and the practice of how you do AI, how you train models, how you build the pipelines, how do you do it hands-on. So you could see, PhDs in chemistry doing courses, with teenagers that just came from the high school, and they're all learning how to write Python pipelines and models. So you get to see it, but it's part of the government and the private sector to build those places and to sponsor it the right way. So we are on the right track, but we still have a huge lack of talents. And maybe, I'm always kidding that maybe this bridge with Turkey will allow us to meet some talents from Turkey that wants to work in the growing startups in Israel.
I hope so, but there's one more thing to that. We talked to Professor Dennis from Koç University today, and we came to the conclusion that domain knowledge is as important as expertise on data, being a data scientist. So can you tell us a little about domain knowledge also related to this talent?
Yes. Well, it's very important. It's also related to my investment strategy. We like those entrepreneurs to come from the specific domain they want to build their venture in. Meaning that it's not enough to do some calculation about the data. You have to really understand what is the meaning of that. And this understanding comes from domain experience and domain knowledge, how to look and how to come to conclusions above what the machine recommends or what the machine replies. And then if you want to do a great AI creation, if you want to train the model the right way, you have to bring experts from the domain with all the knowledge, and of course experts from the part of how to manipulate data and how to create machine learning and deep learning processes. But if they are siloed and there is no connecting language or connecting process between them, it's not going to work. So people from all sides have to take the time to learn and to understand the other side. So this is why all those courses and inspirations is very important, because I see so many people coming from a specific domain. They want to disrupt the area because they have this pain and they have this idea of solution, but they are not aware that with AI they can do it much better in a huge scale and very fast. They are not aware of this technology. So you have to take them to the journey of learning and understanding that decision could be data-driven and not only logic-driven or pre-programmed. So I think it's the way the whole world is going to be changed, because we are as human are going to expect more from machines, expect them to do more processes, more routines, more things that are almost as human decision, make our life better. So this is a transition, but it's a journey. It's not within a day.
Yeah, and as we're talking about this journey, I want to turn back to Izhar and ask him about the key success factors and make a SWOT analysis of the system. We in Turkey, I see it in the education area. All the universities and colleges are emphasizing on coding, so as to attract people who will pay for the education of their children. But when those children get out of school, software itself with AI will be doing the coding job. So it's somehow a problem. You should see into 4 or 5 years ahead, but do the things today. So tell us about the key factors and a short SWOT analysis of this business.
So I think that I would start as a basic foundation for establishing a supporting ecosystem, which is what you've just discussed, education and training of the appropriate skilled workforce to support an AI community and AI-based ecosystem. This is a major issue. Actually, one of the issues the Israeli high tech is dealing with, and it goes all the way from the commercial space to the government level. We are lacking the amount of appropriate workforce and talent that we need in order to continue to grow our ecosystem here. By the way, this is not only about engineers and developers and scientists. This is about other types of jobs that you need in order to create a business ecosystem. As we all know, a company, a business is maybe based on the foundation of an excellent scientific and development workforce, but then you need the business, marketing, sales, and finance people as well. And so the government here has set a general policy where we want to see the workforce in Israel stepping up by 50%, 50% over the next 5 years. This is a major undertaking that requires significant planning and significant funding, and also a lot of coordination. Many of these jobs will support AI companies, as AI is everywhere today as a layer, as one of the layers to fund innovative companies. And so we will need to train people fast on all kinds of jobs and skill sets related to the area of AI. So education is number one. When you talk about establishing a business ecosystem, you also need funding. And so to create that environment, I think that we have done some good work over the last decades in terms of attracting international investors to join the local community here in Israel and to invest in innovative products, innovative entrepreneurs who put together innovative companies. We are actually experiencing, as we speak, a record-breaking year in terms of foreign investments in Israeli early-stage companies. And early stage, by the way, has matured in terms of definition, but everywhere from two entrepreneurs in their garage putting together a slide presentation all the way through a company that generates significant revenue, but still not ending up its growth process, say in the first 5 or 7 years of its existence. These are still early stage companies that need to be funded by external investments. And we have been attractive for foreign investors over the years. And in recent years, this has taken off in a very significant way. Last year, 2020, was a significant year in terms of breaking the $10 billion mark from foreign investors flowing into the Israeli market. This year, we are not at the end of the year. We have just started the fourth quarter. We already are above $17 billion of foreign investors. So we are expecting to double last year's record numbers in terms of foreign investments into Israeli high-tech companies. This is important because when you marry innovation and education and the skill set of so many people with the appropriate funding, you have the basic foundation of a healthy and innovative ecosystem. And then you have other factors that somehow coincide together in Israel to create this perfect storm of a very strong ecosystem. I think that our cultural approach towards innovation is important. You know, culture sometimes sounds like an intangible, unmeasurable factor, but it is important. And the culture here promotes and supports not only innovation, but also going out of your comfort zone, trying something and not condemning you for failing if you tried and did not succeed. And actually many successful, very successful companies here have been founded over the last decade by entrepreneurs who had failed before. So their earlier failure did not preclude them from trying again. And the community around them actually was not criticizing their earlier failure if they failed for the right reasons. Failing for the right reasons mean, you know, market trends, means competitive situations and whatnot. But you see significant companies growing out of those early situations. And so the cultural issue here is very important. We used to joke in this country that an Israeli mother wants to see their son either a lawyer or a doctor or an MD in a hospital. That was 30 years ago. Today, an Israeli mother wants to see her son starting a startup company and going to work for a high-tech company. And that's a cultural issue. It is important. Somehow it has been created, and it is very important for the ecosystem, not only funding, not only education, but also having people with the right mindset to take on a new path and to go on with trying to accomplish the targets and dreams. And then within the ecosystem, we have a very supporting academy. We have the Israeli Defense Forces, which support also innovation and produce a large amount of scientists, researchers, developers, and brilliant, intelligent people in various disciplines. Obviously, AI has become a significant output of that system. So when you marry all of these together, you see that when you run your SWOT analysis, there are some significant strengths out there. Going to the weaknesses and the threats, we are threatened by the global competition, which is a competition on funding and on talent as it relates to IT. So if we want to develop here a striving and growing AI community, we are challenged by international companies that attract some of the best talent here to go work out there for them. Many people move out, many people want to work for global companies around the world, which is fine because some cases they go back to Israel and bring the talent and experience, but still, when you look at it from this perspective of growing the local system here, it is a competitive situation. It is also competitive on the funding side. I mentioned that we have growing numbers, but we keep on competing, and we want to make sure that that international funding, which is all private sector funding, by the way, keeps flowing into the ecosystem here. For this, we need the government to continue to support with all kinds of favorable taxation programs and policy programs and so on, but the ecosystem has to be attractive. So this is a significant threat. And then probably one of the most significant threats that we are facing today is, again, the challenge of educating and growing more and more people who will be able to tackle the most significant technology and scientific tasks that are a result of AI technologies and the AI economy. Those are significant challenges that have to be addressed by bright people who are willing and capable to get educated. And we have to produce the system that is able to educate so many people and to bring them in the right level to the ecosystem. So this is a short view of what is challenging us as compared to what is presented as an opportunity. Overall, the balance is positive. We are able to grow the system year after year. We are able to see a growing number of exciting companies. And we see that also the culture here supports today more and more significant growing companies, multi-billion Israeli companies are the new realization of everything that I've just said. And actually today we see a record number of multi-billion-dollar companies in Israel that have become global powers, many of which are based on AI infrastructure to run their businesses and to run their product offering. And the good news is that all those challenges are just an indication that there's still a lot of work in front of us, and there is a lot of room to grow if we are able to overcome those challenges and threats.
Well, as we're talking about challenges, I guess we have the same challenge. Everything is in English, and Turkish and Hebrew have some problems around that. So now, Yorai, I know that you like to talk about this language both as a barrier and an opportunity. So I'd like to give the word to you to speak about it, but also tell us about the Israeli startup nature and ecosystem, please.
Great. So, in a short way, say Hebrew is is a unique language, not so popular around the world. So, startups that want to grow don't really train their models, their NLP models, with such a language. I assume, I'm not sure, but same problem is with Turkish, though Turkish is probably much more populated, but still it's not English and not Arabic and not Chinese. So it's difficult to cause them to do this work. So just saying that this is one of the challenges, and we even found ourselves. I'm on the, as I said, I'm working on with the education, the Minister of Education. We wanted to adopt, to bring, to make use of all kinds of technologies that we saw in startups and all over the world that good for education, but none of them in Hebrew. So it's hard to make this this way of use, and we have to find a way to make them on board Israel and Hebrew. So this is something that the government will take place, and this is part of the initiative and the program that Izhar mentioned before. I also wanted to take the time and just focus on the advantages and let's say the win-win situation between what I think the Israeli AI startup ecosystem and the Turkish markets and potential growth for those Israeli startups. Because in Israel, we have something like 2,000, it's a huge number, 2,000 startups doing something with AI. It's a huge number. It's the number one per capita in all the world. And Israel is number 3 to 5, depends on what day you measure, on AI ventures and creation in number of companies. Now, looking at the Turkish market, it's a huge market because of the population, and of course because of the very vibrant industry. The classic industry and the telecommunication, and of course the bank and the fintech industry, and not forgetting all the industry of logistics and oil and gas and those areas, which I know that Turkey is very strong with, and all those areas are full with data. And in Israel, we have so many startups that are potentially fit to this industry. So as I see it, there is a great potential connecting between Israeli startups looking for design partners, for customers, for all kinds of experiments and, working with data, connecting them with the Turkish industry, the Turkish corporates, the Turkish groups that has the data and look for innovative technology. And if we can connect both sides, we're probably going to earn for both ecosystems. So this is, I think, taking the two advantages from each side and putting them together and get a win-win situation. And of course, this will accelerate also the Turkish AI ecosystem and the Israeli AI ecosystem in a global way. So I think there are a lot of potential here. And
of course, that's why I gave you the word to talk about the language problem. Well, we have that in the region. We have that problem in the region, and I know from our healthcare industry that when they used a global solution, actually they had to translate all the healthcare data to English and load it on the system, and then get the results. And that didn't work. Actually, maybe with your startup power and this ability to adapt to other languages, maybe we should think about something regional, a regional solution, either in healthcare or education or other things. I know that the trade volume with Turkey and between Turkey and Israel is consistently growing. It's growing every year, but we should also focus in this area, I believe.
Definitely. It's the same challenge because, in courts, they're going to speak Turkish. They are not speaking English. And if you are using their voice and you want to do something like that, also in healthcare, as you mentioned, I don't see Israeli doctors speak English. They speak Hebrew. And you want to take the records and they write in Hebrew. They will not write in English. The same with Turkey. So all sides must put effort in solving that. And it's a mutual problem. It's just an example. I'm sure there are many other area problems that or challenges that we see eye to eye, and mutual effort might help that.
Yeah, maybe we'll have other corporations as other ways of cooperation, as all the governments want to swim in the Southeast Mediterranean. The borders are not so strict now. Everybody is becoming a neighbor to the other. So, Izhar, what do you say about this issue? And we'll close in 3 minutes.
So I am a strong believer that technology and entrepreneurship are the basis for strong ties, not only between local communities, but also between nations and between business people from around the world. I've seen this happening throughout my career. In my own startups, I had the privilege of making strong, warm friendships and connections based first on business connections, but then they developed to all kinds of other directions with really people around the world. So we are talking here about Turkey and Israel. They are definitely, we are close neighbors, which makes it even easier. I think that the talent that is developing in both countries, in Turkey and in Israel, around AI and the notion of innovation, first of all, can support the creation of very interesting and promising companies. And then those companies have the need to go beyond the borders and then expand and create relationships on an international basis. If we study between Israeli and Turkish companies, we can expand that front to all kinds of other areas around the world, Europe, North America, Asia Pacific, and so on. There is a strong market pool around the world. The markets developing around the world do need that kind of innovation, and there are going to be endless business opportunities. I hope that one of the outcomes of this important conference is the creation of a bridge, a dialogue, and hopefully some business connections between Turkish entrepreneurs and Israeli entrepreneurs, between Turkish AI companies and Israeli AI companies. Let's try to push this together. There is an endless sea of opportunities out there. We can go after some of them together.
Yeah, maybe football, maybe one of the teams is very popular in both countries. I believe, and I hope to see singers from both countries on the Eurovision Song Contest competing with each other. So thank you very much for your time. And now go on to our next speaker. I guess there's a lot of strategy lessons that we can take from this, and I hope we'll build cooperation about around these factors. So thank you for your time. Now we'll proceed with the sessions.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.